T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hi.
How are y'all?
Doing good.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining us today. Looks like people are here. Let's do this.
Yay.
First of all, thanks everyone for joining. If you are watching live, this is our part 1 of the 6-part Women in Music series. So we're super excited, but the men can join along as well if you'd like. I wanted to introduce our host today, which will be Sarah from Nashville, Tennessee, and we have Anna from London. And before we hop into you guys' panels, I wanted to ask you just like a couple questions so everyone could kind of get to know you. Sarah, I'll start with you. How long have you been writing?
It's silly how much I think about what I would say to this question. And I usually say around 15 years. I started professionally as a teenager, and I feel like once I moved to Nashville, I kind of restarted professionally, and that marked the beginning of a new era of songwriting. But I generally say around 15 years or so.
Awesome. And Anna, you're in London. What is the music scene like there?
Well, it's blooming as it's always been. Still quite electronic music, heavily, quite big on grime, of course the home of drum and bass, and still the iconic venues, most of them are still open, so everything's still good.
Oh, I'm so jealous. There's like nothing open in Nashville.
Well, I mean, not right now, but
yeah.
like it's just not shut forever. It's
right.
Very coronavirus type now.
Yeah. And do you guys do anything else like this right now during this weird time? Like any other panels or songwriting classes or anything like that y'all want to share?
Yeah, definitely. I've been trying to do as many as I can. I really enjoy teaching like this. I think it's a blast. And I actually I've been doing other workshops for other folks as well, but I'm starting my own online membership where I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching, and it's called Song Club, and I'll touch on that a little bit in my presentation. But yeah, it involves a lot of teaching and keeping writing appointments with yourself so that you never feel like you're too busy to have time to write songs and enjoy it.
Cool. Well, I guess we can hop into Sarah's section first, and then we'll be back with Anna in a little while. Here we go.
Thanks a lot, y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm sure Kelsie or Yvette will let me know if it is not coming through. You guys come off mute and I just, let me know. But yeah, so hi, welcome. I'm excited to be talking to you today about literally my favorite thing in the world, which is songwriting. And specifically how to level up your songwriting quickly by learning how to write from an authentic place, some tips for being in the writer's room, some general co-writing safety, and how to make the most of opportunities that come your way, and even how to make some opportunities yourself, all while staying true to your songwriter's heart. So I'm going to be talking really quickly during this presentation so I can fit the most information possible that I can into 30 short minutes. I have a lot of caffeine helping right now. It's going good. So because of that, don't worry about taking any notes. I've actually compiled everything that I'm going to be talking about today in a free PDF download for you. And you can grab that over at songfancy.com/AdamAudio. It's going to be really helpful for you later if you want to just be able to look back over it and remember what we covered. If you have any questions also during this presentation, I'll just echo what we were talking about earlier. We'd love to hear them. I'd love to hear them. We're going to be answering questions after our talks. So ask a question at any time as it occurs to you, and Kelsie will be keeping track of those so we can answer them for you. So why authenticity today? Like you're here for songwriting, right? Like, why am I talking about authenticity? It's kind of a buzzword these days. You've probably heard a lot of influencers talking about it online. What is it? What does it mean? Is it relevant? Why does it matter? My favorite definition of authenticity that I've ever heard is this. It's being able to show up as one person for every situation in front of any person at all times. We may feel like we show different versions of ourselves to different people. We may feel a little bit like actors sometimes, depending on who we're around, and that can be exhausting and it can feel really fake. Authenticity is living integrated in a way that allows you to show up as the same perfectly imperfect version of yourself to everyone. There's no acting. There's no, I should be this way, or I should feel this way. You're just you. And when you start to walk through your life with that kind of integrated self, it becomes a lot easier for you to know what you want, know what you need, go after what you want and need, and move away from circumstances that don't serve you or others. And when you do want to serve others, you're doing it because you truly care, not because you feel like you should be a certain way around them, but because you actually want to. Songwriting involves all of this: honesty, identity, service, and then, of course, the craft itself. So that's why we're talking about authenticity today. When we show up with authenticity in our writing and professional relationships, it can lead you down a path of joyful creation and meaningful opportunities for you and your music. So this is how we want to approach all aspects of songwriting: craft, relationships, co-writes, correspondence, you name it. And we're going to touch on a little bit of all of that today. So I'd love to know a little bit more about you. I can't see the comments right now, but I can scroll through them afterward. But in the comments, tell us your name, where you're from, and which, if any of these three groups you feel like you most identify with. It might be one group, it might be more than one, it might be none of them, but I love getting to learn a little bit more about who's on the other side of the screen. So introduce yourself to us with your name, location, and if you feel like any of these describe you. Are you a music student? Maybe studying songwriting and you're getting a really great education, but you're wondering how a writing session kind of goes in the world after you graduate? Or maybe you spend most of your time in the producer's chair, or you're an engineer and you want to learn a little bit more about songwriting so that you can level up that part of your skill set. Or maybe you're a curious music lover, or you work in another aspect of the industry and you're curious about how songwriters approach their craft so that you can support the writers that you work with. Tell us who you are. While we're getting to know you, who the heck am I? Before we dive into the good stuff and the meat of this presentation, I just want to give a brief introduction of myself to you. Hi, I'm Sarah Spencer. I'm a singer and songwriter based in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm also the creator of the blog and brand Song Fancy. I've been writing songs professionally for around 15 years. As a songwriter, my songs have been recorded by nationally touring artists, played on the radio, won awards. I've played multiple sold-out shows at the Bluebird Cafe. As an artist, I've toured East and West Coasts on small tours with my friend Steve Morse. We did a record back in 2010 called Angel Fire, and we played some dates in Florida and California, and those were like some of the coolest stages I've ever been on. These days, I write a lot of material for myself that I release independently, and I also get to experience the joy of writing with other artists and helping them to craft their own messages into songs that they love and feel that reflect them as artists and people. And I've managed to do all this while remaining mostly independent for the majority of my career. And when I'm not writing songs, I'm writing about songwriting. I blog about songcraft and encouragement for creatives over at songfancy.com. Every couple months, I host the 5 and 5 Song Challenge, which is a free songwriting challenge that you guys are all invited to. And most recently, I'm building out Song Club, which is a membership community that gives busy songwriters the space and the structure to grow, and a wonderful community to make songwriter friends. Outside of music, I've been enjoying making a lot of mixed drinks while my husband and I are at home. Well, who am I kidding? He's the one making the mixed drinks. He's really good at it. I get the benefit of drinking them. The occasional murder podcast, cooking, really cheap red wine, occasionally oil painting, and just staying creative in this weird time. So now that you know a little bit enough about me, let's dive into the good stuff, why we're all here today. I'm going to be talking really fast during this presentation. So again, I just want to point you guys over here to this URL, songfancy.com/AtomAudio, where you can get the class notes for this presentation. So you have everything to look back on when you want. So first, let's talk about authenticity in the writing room. How does authenticity play a role in the writing room? Songwriters and artists, songwriters are artists in the same way that painters are artists. We have a message and we have a deep desire to share that message with the world. So showing up and being our most authentic and honest selves every time we sit down and write a song is the first step in making our big goals a reality. It's also how we can help others craft their authentic messages into meaningful songs. So how can we do that when we're sharing the room with co-writers, or when you're writing songs that you're going to pitch to like somebody else and you're not sure who's going to cut it yet? It can feel kind of scary and weird, especially with somebody else present. Like, how do you craft music for others that feels authentic to you? So here's what that looks like. It's being vulnerable. Vulnerability in the writing room means allowing yourself to share some pretty deep thoughts and confessions and not censoring yourself. It's vulnerability when you're writing solo, just by yourself, and vulnerability when you're sharing that space with co-writers. It's really the whole reason why the writing room is sacred. There's a huge level of trust between co-writers in that moment, and not allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Now, allowing yourself to be vulnerable does not mean allowing other people to walk all over you and your boundaries. It doesn't mean just being overly agreeable to all of your co-writers' ideas, just trying to please them. Do write with your listener in mind, of course, but you'll be working with your co-writers with that back and forth and sort of give and take kind of collaboration. But being vulnerable does not mean that you allow yourself to get walked on. It simply means that you show up willing to share your thoughts and feelings in an honest way to serve the song. It's also about actively throwing your ideas into the room. And this is especially true for co-writing. You're going to feel at times like your ideas aren't good enough and that you might censor yourself before a suggestion even comes out of your mouth. If you have an idea, throw it out there, riff on it. Not only is this another way that trust is built with co-writers, but you never know the amazing result it could get you to. So many times I've thrown a weird line out just in the writing room just to get it out of my brain, and then that sends my co-writer on a tangent that sends both of us into the perfect chorus line or melody that we've been looking for. It's really how co-writing gets done. So don't be shy. Throw that idea into the room. It's also serving the song first. Whenever you sit down to write a song, consider this. Hold space in the writing room for that song and make a promise to that song that you're going to write the hell out of it to the best of your ability, whatever it may wind up being about or who it's for. That may mean, that the course of your co-write or solo write might change as you go. If you come up with a really great idea that doesn't really jive with the original concept, but instead it sends the song in a completely new and way better direction, then follow that idea. Always serve the song. What makes the best song? Sometimes this even means being aware of an idea, drifting away from something that you yourself would record if you're the artist in the situation. In that moment, you have the choice to say either, hey, y'all, let's stick with something that I can record, or choose to chase the idea and write the best song you possibly can, whoever it may be for. And then lastly, it's knowing why you're writing. Ask yourself, why do I write songs? Do you write for yourself? Do you write for others? Do you write for both? Specifically for country radio? For film and television? Why? Knowing why you write and where you're aiming will help keep you aligned with your goals and even your core values. It will help keep you on the path. If you find that outside influences like co-writers or others are maybe attempting to change what you're working on in the moment, and you're finding that you're actually really miserable and you're not enjoying what you're writing, stop, breathe, and remember, why are you writing? Perhaps maybe in a situation, maybe you're the pop artist and you had hoped that this writing session would be a way for you to talk about highly personal experiences in a song, and your co-writers want to write like a really pitchable, Kenny Chesney's Stadium Country song and you're just kind of not feeling it, that deserves a conversation. Another specific way to get in alignment before is to ask, who am I writing for? Knowing the answer to that question will help you stay aligned and authentic. All right, let's dive into some honest and active co-writing. Now that you know how to approach any write with authenticity, let's dive into co-writing more specifically, like how to meet co-writers, where you can write together, and some personal safety tips for making the best out of your co-write. So where are you going to meet co-writers? Well, if you're in school, chances are you've probably been co-writing already. You're probably surrounded with co-writer friends that you collaborate with on school projects or personal projects. If you're not collaborating with your classmates, I definitely recommend you start. Some of my most treasured friends I still know from college, and I still keep in touch with them, and we still work together. You can also meet co-writers at shows. Here in Nashville, we have writers' rounds, which are amazing places to meet co-writers because it's all songwriters and we all get to hear each other's material throughout the night. Open mics are also great for that reason. So are some online communities like my own 5 and 5 Song Challenge. Music Biz Besties is a wonderful community for women in music across all aspects of the music industry, not just songwriters. And I've linked these communities in my freebie. So if you go over to songfancy.com/AtomAudio, this is noted and linked in there as well. So you can join in there. If you're in school, your professor or teachers may know of other students that you could write with. If you're affiliated with a PRO, you could ask your rep if they could recommend some folks for you to reach out to for co-writes, and they may even facilitate that introduction for you. And next time you're in the studio, if there are folks there that you're meeting for the first time, like session guitarists, the vocalists, get to know them. You never know what kind of friendship or co-writer connect might come from that session. So let's talk for a moment about co-writer safety. This is something that I didn't know until I moved to Nashville and I had to learn it all on my own. I really wish that somebody had given me these tips, so now I'm passing them along to you. Unfortunately, I've heard too many stories from friends who've been in really scary situations, and I've even run into a few myself. The number one rule for safely co-writing is to never, ever go over to somebody's house or to an undisclosed location if you don't already know and trust them. If you just met someone at an open mic night or out and they seemed really cool, and even if you hit it off right away and you probably will become great friends, wait for that friendship to build trust before you show up alone at their house one day expecting a write. For me personally, I don't go to people's homes without knowing them really well until we have built that trust and respect for one another before I just show up alone. It's not convenient, but it's important. It can help if you have a third writer that you know really well that's also meeting you there, or perhaps you can carpool with so you're not just alone with someone who's practically a stranger. You can always suggest a friend of yours to bring in as a third co-writer. If you do that, just be sure that you're cognizant of everyone's safety and try to meet in a neutral location so that everyone can feel good about the setup. Some good spots to write are at a writing room at your PRO. I love writing at the in the writing rooms at ASCAP here in Nashville. They're so inspiring. Here in Nashville, they're pretty hustling and bustling, so it's really hard to feel isolated. There's always other people around. Other places can be like a publisher friend's office, a producer friend's office or studio. Just be sure to get their permission first and to be courteous of who you're bringing into their space. I've even heard of writers meeting at like parks where people are around and just putting down a blanket and bringing lunch. That might also generally feel like a date. So just, co-write with someone that you feel comfortable with in that setting. If you know the person and you trust them, consider them a friend, you can, of course, always meet at their home or invite them to yours. I personally love writing at my friends' homes because it's just a lot more comfortable there. And there's no timer going off in 3 hours and no one's going to come in and kick us out. We can just kind of take our time and visit with each other and write some really great stuff. Lastly, listen to your gut. If something feels off, it's probably because it is. We all have intuition and gut feelings for a reason, and that's to keep us safe. I personally believe that people have good intentions, but there's still no harm in setting up boundaries for your safety and being respectful but firm about enforcing them. And this may seem obvious for some people, but for those listening who may have never heard it directly before, the writing room is not the place to make a move. It's a very intimate space. I mean, like we talked about in the first section of this, it requires a lot of vulnerability. But it's not a place to ask somebody for their phone number or to try and kiss someone or generally make a move like that. The writing room is sacred and should be about the song. All parties should feel secure to completely invest themselves in writing the best song they can. Now, we love a songwriter love story, and sometimes people really do have amazing chemistry when they've met at a co-write, but any move that you're considering making, just save it until after the write, so the integrity of the writing relationship isn't broken. All right, let's move into relatable writing quick injections. So now that we know a little bit more about how to remain authentic in the writing room, some general safety tips. Practically speaking, what are some technical ways that we can write songs that feel both honest and commercial? Learning techniques that let listeners into your songs is key. Allowing them to feel invited in, that the story is accessible, is what we aim for. When listeners feel invited into a song, it serves your higher purpose and plan by allowing your story to be heard and related to. And it also allows your listeners to experience that story through the lens of their own experiences. This can allow for healing, for insight, processing of past experiences, and can just plain make them feel good. The alignment of your honesty with the listener's experience is what makes powerful songs. This was so important. I wanted to put it in its own slide just to pull it out. So let's look at some quick injections that you can use to make your songs the most effective. These are super duper quick tips that you can use to inject into any writing session to make your songs more memorable, more catchy, and to let listeners in. So write to the concept. Does every line point back to the hook? Have a well-established hook and make sure that every line points right back to that hook. It just occurred to me now that we call something a hook in Nashville that may have a different definition in other, countries or music centers in the world. The hook that I'm referring to is like that punchline at the end of the chorus. It's the memorable line. It may also be the title of the song. It kind of encompasses the overall concept of the song. So does every lyric in your song point back to the overall concept? You don't want to wander too far off in the woods, or else that verse might feel meaningless. And you might have listeners wondering, like, where am I and how the hell did I get here? A good rule of thumb is to sit back every now and then and ask yourself, does this line write to the hook? Use sensory language. Use words that evoke people's senses. Some of them include sight, smell, sound, touch, taste. If you've ever read some Pat Pattison, he also recommends writing from your kinesthetic sense, organic sense, and other perceptive senses, like the way that your body feels in space and motion. Sensory language is the fastest way to bring your listener into a song and have them feel like they're not just listening to it, but experiencing it. Have melodic contrast between sections. Having melodic contrast between different sections of your song acts like a roadmap for your listeners. Most of the time, when people are listening to music these days, they're doing something else. And I'm not talking about in a live setting where people are paying attention to who's on stage. I'm talking about like when you're driving in the car listening to music, or there's a playlist playing while you're cooking and cleaning, or music at a restaurant. And on top of it, most popular music is around 3 minutes long. So 3 minutes is not really a long time to create a whole universe for your listener to dive into and become absorbed in. Adding contrast, melodic contrast specifically, between the different sections of your song acts like a roadmap that helps the listener know exactly where they are in their experience of your song, because each section will sound unique from one another. And finding melodies by talking. I love this trick. It feels like cheating. It feels like a hack. Speaking of melody, speak your lyrics to find your melody. If you're ever in a tough spot trying to figure out the melody for a line, say that line out loud. Listen to it as you speak it. Where does your natural speaking come up? Where does it dip down? A good way to see this in action is to ask a question. So in English, when we ask a question, the natural speaking melody picks up at the end. Did you want to go out tonight? Hear how like tonight moves up at the end? That's a good indication that this is a question without any other cues like body language or seeing the words or the question mark written on a page. Speak your melody out loud to hear the natural melody inside of it. And then from there, you can write a natural feeling melody that emulates that speaking melody, or you can choose to completely break it down into something new. That's up to you. All right, this is probably something most of y'all have been looking forward to, authenticity when pitching. So let's fast forward a little bit, and let's say you have an awesome catalog of songs. You have a collection of demos that you're really proud of, and you're ready to get your songs into the ears and on the records of artists. So how the heck do you matchmake your song with the perfect artist? How do you do it without being too pushy or rude or without being too passive and quiet? How do you pitch confidently and authentically, whether you're in Nashville or a small town that's not a music center? So let's dive in. I have some great tips for you. All right, pitch sheets. Love them or hate them, pitch sheets can be a nice tool, especially for people who don't live in a music center. There are quite a few out there. Rofax is a great one to look into, especially if you're interested in country music. It's not cheap, but it's a great resource because it allows you to get your songs in the hands of an artist who is looking for songs. It's also great for seeing who in the majors are looking and what they're looking for and who they're working with. Don't expect to get a major cut from a pitch sheet, but it's great for getting your first cuts with indie artists and for keeping your finger on the pulse of who's looking. Also, if you're interested, in country music, Rofax is definitely the one you want to go for. Some other online membership type communities, SongU has a lot of pitching opportunities, and Music X-Ray does as well. Music X-Ray tends to have a lot of film and television opportunities as well. Pitch events or pitch to publisher events. Check out NSAI, Global Songwriters Connection. Brent Baxter of songwritingpro.com offers a really great pitch event because you actually get to interact with the publisher in real time and ask them questions. It's also an application only pitch, so he picks a very select amount of people to put songs in front of the publisher, which makes it just a really high quality event. It's also like the cheapest one. I don't know why he charges like $10 to $15 for it, and it's truly, I think, one of like the highest quality pitch events out there. Pitch events like this are, of course, paid events, usually. They're not exorbitantly expensive, but it's a great way to get your songs out there and gather some feedback, especially, again, for people who are not in Nashville or a music center. Artist friends. Ask your artist friends if they're looking for songs or if they need a specific song. These are people that you already have an established friendship with and that you feel you can comfortably approach and say, hey, you know I love your music. Are you looking for songs right now? I'd love to share some tunes with you that I think you really dig. You may even be able to open the door to co-writing with them if you're not already. TikTok and YouTube. If you see someone who's doing covers out there and you really love their voice, reach out. They might be considering writing songs, but not actually be doing it yet. Offer to write them a song based on what they're looking for, or if they want to write with you. Share a link to a song that you feel represents you best so they can see the quality and vibe of your work. If you can message them right there on the platform, like Instagram DMs, TikTok messages, that's ideal. The idea is to keep it casual and informal. You're connecting with them sort of as a fan and a follower and seeing if they'd be open to writing or for a pitch. And of course, if you're in school, ask your professors for recommendations. They may know of events or shows or networking events or meetups that you can be part of to start to plug in the industry in your area. Affiliate with a PRO and ask your rep. Your rep is a wonderful person to ask for co-writers that you could potentially work with. Let them know that you're interested in pitching your work, and they will either offer you places to pitch them or introduce you to co-writers or generally help you out for whatever level they feel that you're at. It may take some persistence to finally get a meeting with your rep, as they are extraordinarily spread thin with all the writers they're trying to serve. So don't take it personally if you have to send them a couple emails before you get a response back. Also, if your rep does not feel that you're ready to be introduced to their co-writer connections, they may instead offer you other opportunities for education. Be open to what they have to share with you, and of course, always be gracious. All right, so let's say that you have an opportunity to formally pitch a song to somebody, someone who's maybe a publisher, an artist, or somebody on the artist team. Here's some basic pitch etiquette to help you craft your response to them. And again, this is more formal pitching. It's not necessarily the folks that you're reaching out to in DMs or your friends that you're asking. So only send songs when you have the permission to do so. When you send unsolicited material to somebody, you actually put them in a very sticky legal situation. If you send material without the green light to send it, chances are they're just going to delete the email or throw away your CD. Unfortunately, it's nothing personal. It's just the way that it is. So do your people a favor and yourself a favor, and only send music when you're given the okay to do so. If you ever see that phrase on a website or on a newsletter or something that says no unsolicited material, that's generally what that means. Don't send downloads or attachments. Only send links to your music. This is because it's just a lot easier for somebody to listen to your music if they don't have to download it onto their hard drive. It's taking up memory on their machine. End of story. It's really just as simple as that. I've been told so many times, please don't send it as a download or an attachment. Please just send us a link. SoundCloud is great for this because you can create private links and private playlists for different people. Don't be afraid to follow up. You can even automate it to make it easier for yourself. Follow-up emails are not pushy. They do not cross a line or overstep any kind of boundary when done well. It's actually a really wonderful way to help the person that you're following up with. Publishers' inboxes specifically are some of the most overwhelmed inboxes, and you do somebody a real solid by being a consistent and appropriate presence in their inbox. Don't take it personally if it takes them a while to get back to you. You can also automate your follow-up emails so that they send at certain times without you having to do it manually. Here's a quick formula I recommend for follow-ups. So the first follow-up, about a week or two later, just reply to your initial email so that the body of your first email is down below. And then just write one line, just bumping this to the top of your inbox. That's it. I got this from Brian at Growth Tools. I think it is a brilliant strategy. It's so easy, so casual, and so helpful. After that, 1 to 2 weeks later, you could do another quick follow-up. You can hit them in a reply, or you can hit them in a fresh email. Just said, hey, just checking in to see if you've had a moment to listen to that tune. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts, and I'm excited about X project. Let me know if I can get you anything else. Short and sweet, offers a little more context. And then 1 to 2 weeks after that, you can do the same thing. Hey, just checking in to see how you're doing and to see if you've had a moment to listen to those songs. Are you still considering songs for X project? Again, short and sweet. After 3 follow-up emails, you have the choice to continue following up if you want, but I suggest, consider stepping back. They may reach out to you, they may not. That's okay. You gave it your best shot. Continue to nurture the relationship and treat it as you would any of your other professional relationships. Keep in touch with this person and occasionally drop them emails just to see how they're doing or to share something that you're working on that they may find interesting. Congratulate them on new signings or accomplishments and generally lift them up whenever you can. Oh, and a Nashville no. If you send a bunch of follow-up emails to somebody, you've pitched them a song and you get no response, we call that a Nashville no over here. It generally means pass. The silence means pass. And it's not anything rude, or it is a bit impersonal, but it's not anything rude, and it's just sort of a way of saying thanks but no thanks. And if you get a Nashville no, then you have full permission to move on and continue with your writing. So let's reiterate about what we talked about today. You know how to write from an authentic place. You've learned some quick injections to make your songs invite listeners in, aligning honesty and commercial songwriting techniques. And you know how to navigate a co-write and put your best foot forward in the writing room. You also learn how to safely meet with new co-writers. After the song is written, you know how to reach out to artists, send cold emails, and the importance of following up and how it's not being pushy or rude. I hope you've had a great time with me here. If you haven't gotten the freebie yet, be sure to snag it over at Adam Audio. Just kidding, over at songfancy.com/Adam Audio. And if you have any questions at all, of course, ask them now. We will be answering questions, and I'd always love to be a resource for you. Feel free to drop me a line. My email is hello@songfancy.com. I'd love to be just a resource for you. And of course, you're all invited to join Song Club. We're launching soon. You can get on the wait list over at mysongclub.com. So I'm going to come off screen share now. And here's my face. Hey, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I learned so much, and I loved the tips on the co-writing stuff. Have you been co-writing any lately during this time, like over Zoom or anything like that?
Yeah, mostly Zoom. It's funny because one of my main best friend co-writers, John Cirillo, he splits his time between Colorado and Nashville. And so we write over Zoom all the time when he's in Colorado. So in some ways it feels like not much has changed, but yeah, except all of my co-writes are Zoom writes these days.
Okay. Well, if you're just joining us, we have Sarah Spencer, a songwriter from Nashville, Tennessee. And we have Anna from London who's about to speak. But before we do that, I actually forgot to mention at the beginning, you may have seen in the comments, but we're doing a giveaway. So we're going to be doing 6 giveaways over the span of this 6-week series. And at the end, we will be giving away 1 pair of Atom Audio T8V monitors. But each week, we will also be giving away a license for the BrainWorks VX console with Focusrite SC software. So enter to win. We are dropping the link to the giveaway platform every couple minutes in the comments section. So you should be able to grab it there. But if you guys have any questions, please drop them. And if you missed anything, if you're tuning in late, this will all be posted after the fact, so you'll be able to rewatch it on all of our social media pages. So did you want to answer any questions now, Sarah, or do we want to wait till the end?
Either works for me. I don't want to step on any of Anna's time, but yeah, either works for me.
Let's do questions at the end, and we'll have Anna. But once again, thank you so much, and thank you so much for helping us organize all of this and making this happen.
Thank you. It's been a blast. I'm excited to see what else is in store and to hear Anna's talk.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, we have Anna from London, like I said. She's a producer, sound engineer, and lecturer. So we're going to get into that now.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. Well, excited to be here today. Thanks for tuning in. So today we're gonna dive into the world of a DAW. I'm going to break down a tune that I've been working on in Ableton Live. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Yeah, that should go through now. So, and by the way, if you like anything you hear or something gets you intrigued, please drop a comment and we'll pick it up at the end of the session. So what is a DAW, first of all? So it is a software that will allow you to record, edit, and process audio and MIDI data. So this is something that makes music production pretty accessible now. I'm working in Ableton Live. It's just purely because it fits the best my workflow and how I approach production. But there are many other ones as well out there, like Logic, Pro Tools, Cubase. So let's actually just have a little playback session. So I'm just going to play the song, and once that's done, we can go into little details. So there we go.
When the fear sinks in, goes in deep and finds you what to do. Now the path beckons, pulled away from the truth, your way through. Go tell them, show them it's no use. Have to lose. You're gone now. Never say it's no use. Have to lose. Go tell them, show them it's no use. Have to lose. You're gone now. Never say it's no use. You'll have to lose. When, what to go, when, go, when, to do, when, go, what, what to, when, go, to do, go, when the fear sinks in, goes in deep and finds you what to do.
Great. So, first of all, I've had some vocals and some guitars to work with. So that's what I've got from the singer-songwriter. So I got them down here, hidden, all the takes and just what I used to comp the vocals from. And then with the guitars, it's a few takes on the same track. So usually what I do, I have a spare track underneath if things weren't recorded to a timeline, because the song hasn't been made yet, but the song is being built around the materials. So then I just drop down all the parts that I will use later on. So once I got there, then I headed to session view. So this is where the fun starts with live, because that's when you can get stuck in and just start jamming without really worrying about the timeline, which is here, but that comes into play a little later. So first, I've just laid down a few of the sections of the song on this non-linear view of the DAW. So I'm just gonna play. So that's how the intro was born, just up here. Just playing these clips back. And then the second part. And then the verse. And the chorus. So once I got all these basic ideas down just by the guitar, then I moved all of this to the arrangement view, and then I started building the rest of the instruments around it. So first of all, let's have a look at the drums. So I made them quite glitchy, but tried not to go too mental. So I used a drum rack, and what's going on here is that we got all of these cells here, and each of the cells are holding a drum sample or a drum sound, because it can be synthesized as well. I've got quite a few Foley hits as well. These are just sound that was recorded in the real life. It could be anything, you dropping a stone in the sea, or hammering a glass bottle, anything really, and just create some hits out of that. So this is like quite a good way to get inspired. I'm quite a few times I'm out and about with my Zoom recorder, just capturing some sounds, because it's easy to create some textures and also get some sounds that nobody else has. So if I solo my drum group, then we can see how it goes. So that went to the chorus part. And then I got it a little busier and glitchier in the instrumental, because that's where it had some space for it. So, yeah. And then I've got a few hi-hats and other bits. So once the drums were laid down, I also have a couple of edits, which is quite important. So the drums are not going all the way with the same pattern, because then it's just going to get really monotone. And also drum edits can help highlight the changes in the arrangement and prepare you for a new section of the song. So once I've got the drums, then I actually wasn't quite sure what I needed. I just needed a new sound. But I quite like been through the sins on that day when I was doing sound design. So actually I just went and abused Simpler a little bit. That's pretty much the time when I don't know what I want, but I'm just gonna give it a go to find it. Then I go and just abuse some audio files. So what I did here essentially is I had these long ooh and ahs in the song with her voice. So then I just highlighted this very little section of it. So if I arm that track, it sounds like that. So originally it was, if I take that off as well, so now it sounds more like a human voice. So yeah, that's coming from the vocals. So then what I did is just highlighted that section, and then I came up with a little melody, which sounds a little lame until we get the effects on it. So it's a very easy way to get creative. So then I got this melody. Let me just solo this. Yeah, it sounds pretty funny. But then, because I knew there would be a section where I would want to have some chords as well. So then I knew I would want to have an arpeggiation. So for the single notes, once I put on the arpeggiator, then some of the notes will get like kind of stuck in the arpeggiator. So it will change the pattern of the notes a bit. So halfway there. And then here are the chords without the arpeggiator, with the same sound. Yeah, nothing exciting with the arpeggiator. Still nothing really exciting. But then once I put on the echo device, then this is what it become. And then here too, and then the chords. And then I also automated a filter cutoff here just to have the transition. So the filter just opening. So yeah, that was definitely one of the best parts, building this song, because it just came so out of nowhere, just with experimentation. So, and then I kind of started to deal with the guitars. So I had the guitars recorded in mono, just with a direct line input. So in the chorus, I really wanted to make a bit more stereo, so I duplicated it. But obviously, just duplicating the same track, it's not gonna make it stereo. So I also delayed the duplication a little bit, and like by putting on a delay, and also if I zoom in, then there is like a really little nudge. Obviously, we need to be careful here, because by nudging the same audio, we can come across phasing issues, but it can be resolved. So the guitars then got like this. So they're a bit more wide in the chorus. So that was also successfully done. And then I got these little step sounds here, which I layered up. There we go. Just in between. They don't sound exciting on their own, but in the track, and I'm going to talk about that, is like soloing instrument and how to make things work in the context, rather than getting really stuck on how something sounds on its own. But before that, let's take a look at the vocals and the vocal chops, especially. So again, my favorite Simpler came into play. So I got this track. Frozen is, so what it means is the device is still there, the notes are still there, but I'm not able to tweak anything, because the software just froze the instrument, so I can ease on my CPU. Because obviously when you start adding loads of instruments and loads of effects and processing, then you start lugging and you start overloading the CPU, even if you hide your buffer size. So then it's a good idea to start freezing some of the tracks that we might don't have, anything else to do with. So I got, again, the vocal line, the full vocal line inside Simpler. And I just sliced this up by creating the markers where it's also entered the slice. And once it's sliced up, then all of those slices are moved to a different semitone on the piano roll. So then essentially I'm just able to sequence it, the slices, independently, just like as we play in piano notes or anything MIDI, really. So then this is what came out.
When the view was go when the view go when the view to when.
So I just kind of thought before, by the end of the tune, just going into traditionally kind of from the second chorus into another instrumental part and then an outro, it'd be nice to have like a different section that wasn't really present in the first part of the tune. So actually that's a good time to talk about kind of transitions as well, and how to just make your elements and track really work. So for example, with arrangement, is how do we arrange? Why do we arrange? What even makes a good song, a good production? What makes a good producer even? So first of all, as for a producer, it's obviously very important to know your DAW, to be quick on it. And so if you get an idea, you are able to, just lay it down as fast as possible before it's kind of gone. The second thing is to do know genres outside of your comfort zone, because it's obviously, when I make my own music, there is a few genres that I feel particularly comfortable in, and what I usually make. But then at the end of the day, we really need influences as well for our own music too. And if we just keep listening to the same music that we make as well, there's nowhere really to inspire, like to get inspiration from, because then we're just gonna keep creating the same stuff that's been done already. So yes, knowing different genre, that's the same for producing for other people as well, because you never know what kind of music they're imagining, what they are after. So if you limit it just to one or two genres, then it's harder to produce for other people, unless they are specifically into the same music as you and what you are making. And then arrangement wise, so there are some rules. We're counting bars and beats and phrases, and why is that? Because we have been listening to music for as long as we remember, and when we listen to music, we kind of have expectations of what is coming next. And yeah, it's a fine line, because if you always just do everything the same way as it was done, the same arrangement, then it's just too predictable. So it's obviously nice to break the rules sometimes and come up with something interesting or the next recession, drop it out a bit earlier, etc. But it's also important to do this without being very disruptive, because just think about it. If you go to a club and a DJ is playing a tune and you don't even know it, but you kind of, as the beat goes, you know where the drop is going to be. You kind of know when the breakdown comes, when there is a new bass line is going to come in, because you're used to it and you do have the expectations. So now, yes, for that, we need to make the arrangement flow as well. So for that, what can help us is, for example, automation. So if you look at these red lines here, these are kind of representing some like a change of value over time as we're playing back. So for example, with the guitars, let me just solo this. So towards the end, the filter cut off. We'll just go down, and if you listen to it in context, then it will just give you a cue that a change is about to happen. So probably that won't be the same guitars playing anymore, because that's the cue.
Have to lose your.
So as the guitar went out, then there suddenly was space for the vocals and for the song to transition, really. And that's the same that happened here with the synth sounds as well. That again, the filter cutoff on it will be automated over time. So this time it's actually gonna fade in instead of out, because we're going into a section, not coming out of one. So that goes like that. And it's also increasing in volume in that part, so in context. So it's just opened up the instrument for the next section, so it kind of like led you into it. And in terms of arrangement and changes, it's like I said, it's just important to give the cues, because so what I mentioned, what makes the good production? Good hooks, good melodies, that's fine. You really need those. But if those elements are not executed well in an arrangement, then it's just never gonna really cut through. But then in the same time, if you're really good at arranging, but the material you're working with is not catchy enough or is not defined enough, then it doesn't matter how well it's arranged if the sounds and the melodies are not good enough. So really it's a combination of multiple things really. And I think soon I'll be out of time, so I'm gonna wrap up soon. One other thing to mention, which is kind of a good practice, why do I have all of these groups around my tracks? So it's a good idea to group certain like bunch of instruments together, preferably by the frequency ranges, like what band they're taking up in the frequency range. So the drums together, and then I got all kind of instruments that like really placed over the mid range, and then obviously the bass layers together as well, and then the vocals too. So there are a few reasons for that. So first of all, because then if all your vocals are, for example, too loud, then now we will have a separated fader for the group that will move the volume for every single participant in the group, so all the other vocals. And then also I've got another group of vocals inside this main group. And the reason for that is at this stage is not really the levels, it's more to do with the processing, that when you start going into, EQing, compressing, and really treating the sounds, then it's very different how you treat, sounds with like low frequency information that you do with high frequency information. So you would never really mix the same way your basses and your vocals, because it requires totally different settings. So it's a good practice to start once you're piling up your instruments, your layers, and your elements, that you start organizing them into groups so you can process them and also organize them. Because, when your tune becomes over 20 tracks, it's quite hard to navigate as well. So it's a good idea to have them all grouped up. So I think that's it for about the session, and I'm just very interested now of the questions, if there's anything I can answer. I hope you heard or saw something that you liked, and I managed to get you inspired to go home and make some music. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Actually, you guys are there now. Hey,
Thank you so much. That was awesome, and a killer song too.
Yeah, those guitar parts, oh my god.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna pop some questions on here. Here we go. Mariella says, when sending demos, oh, this is for Sarah. When sending demos / beats for a pitch or a collab, what can you do to prevent your work from getting stolen?
Ooh, this is such a good question. It's kind of two parts. Sorry, y'all, I have an extraordinarily squeaky chair. When sending demos versus beats, and how do you protect both of those things? I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you the best legal advice, but I'll tell you what I do. I don't copyright songs until they're going to really be released on a large scale. If I'm releasing music myself, I'll copyright my songs before I release them. If I'm pitching songs, I don't copyright them before pitching. But if an artist is going to cut that song, then I go and get it copywritten, because I know that when they release the song, it's going to be on a much larger scale than what I can do just pitching. Excuse me. Copywriting songs can be very expensive and time consuming, so that's why I do it that way. That's how most people I know do it. I've had publisher friends say that they do that as well, just with their own writers. So that's typically kind of how I'm familiar with things. Now with beats, for pitch or collab, beats are a little bit different because, Anna might actually know how to answer this part of the question as well. I'm not sure if you can copyright a beat.
Sorry, I've been like so going through the comments.
It's fun.
Copywriting the beat. Well,
Yeah, is that even possible?
well, once you release your material, it's yours really. So if anybody wants to use it, it comes down to royalties. Then, like once it's released, it's yours. So you can actually, people can get into trouble for that, like using any parts of your beats. And there was like loads of stuff on TV with Justin Bieber as well, that this like quite unknown like indie songwriter came along and showed a tune. She had this very little hook in her tune, and she said like Justin used that, and it's actually escalated, even though it was a very, very small amount of her beats. But it's you can't just take other people's music. So yes, you can. I hope I answered the question, because I really just peeked the last bit because I was reading the comments.
Yeah.
You're fine. That was an awesome question. All right, we've got Jess in. Do you think that starting a YouTube channel to release your original songs is a good way to get exposure or contacts?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If it's your music, get it out there, share it. Don't be afraid to throw your artistry out into the world and share it with other people. Plus it also shows, like, if you're trying to make a career out of your artistry or out of songwriting, it shows that you're doing things and you're marketing yourself, and it shows the quality of what you're producing. It shows that you're active. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you'll see that people take music on and offline depending on if it's getting attention. But yeah, you'll know if you need to do that because you'll be in those conversations. So yeah, definitely start a YouTube channel. If that's how you're feeling, like you want to get behind a camera and share your music, go for it. That's awesome.
Also with production breakdowns, because if you're making your own music, you never know what like opportunities you can get out of that. It's not just about how your music sounds, but what your skills are, because someone sees you produce music and there is a singer songwriter and just hits you up over YouTube of, can you make me some beats? So that's a good way to go too.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about this topic on our 5th week of the series. So come back for more, because it'll be all about marketing your music and your art. Next question. Oyan? I may have butchered that name. For the beginners, which tools would you suggest to get first? Like you mentioned, Zoom recorder, and so on. Yeah.
So yeah, like depends how beginner. If very, very beginner, first of all, obviously a good computer and a DAW, a software that you can make music on, and probably a cheap keyboard as well, so you can start sequencing melodies and program some drums. So that's a good starting. And yeah, if you're into getting your own sounds in and processing them, and trying to find some unique stuff to work with, then you can get on a Zoom recorder. But probably at the beginning, when you're really beginner, there's so much sounds that the softwares are coming with that probably be fine just to work with them, just to see how you get on. And once you kind of out of them, they serve their purposes, then you can go and buy yourself a recorder. But yeah, computer, DAW, keyboard, or any kind of MIDI controller, and you go good to go.
So, Aruna R, are there any online music production classes you guys can suggest?
Yeah, like YouTube is full of them. There are good ones and there are not so good ones, which is, it's good to get it out there, but sometimes there is some information that can get you a bit more confused than helpful. You can watch Andrew Hyung on YouTube. He's really good. He's really creative. Like that's pretty. Like that's what I really appreciate in him. Also, I don't know if you're up to like actually study like on like in an actual school on a professional course or in higher education. But for example, I teach in Point Blank. They're running online classes as well, so you can just learn from home, software, creative courses. So yeah, I could definitely recommend them. You might bump into me too there.
Yeah, there's probably more online opportunities now than ever, I would think.
Oh yeah, there's also another good advice. Sorry for being long. If you got like favorite artists who you really like their songs, there's loads of them have like Patreon pages now where you can just kind of pay a small fee and then get access to their sample packs and some production tutorials. Also, loads of them are streaming for free on Twitch as well. So yeah, this, if you up for online production learning, it's the time to get on there because there's so many people doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Another question. Catherine, what are your thoughts on being a streaming musician versus a touring musician? Pros and cons of each.
Yeah, they're so vastly different. I think it's a matter of what you want your life to look like and what you enjoy. If you're kind of a behind the scenes person like me, I don't like being in the spotlight. I like small tours, but I have no desire to like headline stadiums internationally. It's streaming. If you're like me, streaming may be the way that you want to go. And you can do any combination of either. Pros and cons of each. Streaming, you have everything in your world is right in front of you. You can get started with limited technology and go live and share music however you want, whenever you want. It's kind of all in your hands. Touring can be all in your hands, but I mean, you see where we are in the world right now. There's a pandemic. Touring opportunities really aren't happening. It can be very expensive. Oftentimes you are in the red when you start touring. Until you build up a fan base in an area and you're able to go there and fill rooms. Whereas with streaming, that's less of a problem. Starting with streaming and then being able to move into touring might be helpful because you can build up fan bases. You could do targeted advertising in certain regions and then go do live shows there. Yeah, I think it depends on what you want your life to look like and what your lifestyle is.
Yeah. Talia? What's a good way to get out of making loops and actually write songs? Ooh.
The usual struggle. Yeah, it's sometimes I feel like as well a good question, but I'll tell you what helps me is just start like once you have a really like busy loop. So I guess when you get stuck in the loop is because you kind of reached the potentials of that you can fill out, like in terms of frequencies as well. So you have all kind of instruments going on, drums, everything. So that's the time when it's good to go away and start stripping down your loop. So take away some elements first, maybe, like take out the bass line, see what it sounds like, then do some editing in the drums and start piecing things together. And that's that comes down to arrangement and when you're creating transitions between sections and keeping stuff interesting after you're out of your loop is not always stocking things up. Sometimes starting to trip down things can actually inspire you more than adding more and more elements and create more impact and just have a little play and with the combinations that you already have in your loop, like stop adding stuff in, start taking some out and lay it out, and that will inspire you. Like once the bass line is out, like okay, now I think I could really have a piano line there, and that's it, you out of the loop, you off to do your piano line. So that's my advice.
Love that.
It's cool.
Sarah Spencer, do you write the melody first or the lyrics? That's a great question.
That's such a good question. I write both at the same time. I feel like I can't really separate them. Well, that's not true. But when I'm writing alone, it's just me. I tend to write things at the same time. But I've definitely been in plenty co-writes where I'm working with a lyricist. Like I said, my buddy John Cirillo is primarily a lyricist. And I primarily take melody in those situations, but we both kind of work on, there will be crossover, of course. But yeah, I tend to want to write things at the same time. It just feels the most natural.
Yeah, I feel like that's different depending on who you are and the mood you're in.
Definitely.
Mariella asked, do you split up / separate your work schedule in specific parts, like a sound design session, beat mixing session, and mixing, mastering, etc.? Or do you do everything as you go? I can feel overwhelmed sometimes when everything I have to do
To finish a song.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question. Yes, specifically with sound design, because that's the one thing that can really drain me like down. So if I just sit down and make a little bit like a drum loop or whatever, and then I start going like crazy with sound design, like by the end of it, I'm going to end up with a few new sounds, but I'm so overwhelmed and uninspired because I'm just thinking about the technicalities as well of how to move my macros and all of that. And that can just really drag you off your creative flow. So yes, I do have sound design sessions when I just literally sit down and just deal with, like, I pick out my Foley recordings and just edit them, put them into a rack, and then I'm off. It's done. And then next day I come back and actually make music with what I've did the previous day. Sometimes you can't really avoid designing on the way when you getting pretty close of finishing, but you're still missing a sound, then you will have to just go in and do it, because by then you will have the idea of what you're looking for, really. But yes, it is a very good idea to have separated sessions for like the more draining parts, like sound design and editing. And then when you actually go to do the creative part, when you have everything there, all you have to think about is creating the music, not creating the material that you're going to use to create the music. Mm-hmm. So yes, definitely divide the time.
Keep your brain organized. Emily Coco asked, hi, Anna. Thank you for the session. I learned music production by myself in lockdown. Awesome. Welcome to the music production world, Emily. How can I approach the process of mixing my voice in Logic Pro so my voice is still clear, natural, and authentic?
Okay, that's a good question as well. So there is a really good chain for you to begin with. So I guess you already kind of have an idea about EQs and compressors and whatnot. So a good starting point to keep your voice clean is if you apply an EQ first, and then you remove all the frequencies that are not wanted, like, for example, all the low end, because that's all just noise and stuff that you don't need. Your voice is not down in the low end, so you can just cut everything. Female voice below 100 hertz can go straight away. And then you can put up a compressor. And why it's really important, because then the question usually comes, is it compression or EQ first? Why I think it's very important to remove the frequencies first, because with compression, you're going to bring all of those up in level. So then, yeah, it's nicer to start with that. And then after the compressor, you can add another EQ where you can boost the frequencies where you think you're lacking, if you want your voice to keep it natural but maybe a little bit brighter, because you're working on a song that suits a brighter vocal line. Then you just boost the frequencies in there, not in the previous EQ, because then you change the level of the compressor. So an EQ to remove a compressor and an EQ to boost can help. And then just some reverb, some natural, nice plate or whole reverb, and a little bit of delay. And that should probably do justice. Maybe a dash of saturation. But if you want to keep it like really clear and natural sounding, then you don't need to go really crazy on the effects. Just get it balanced in terms of level, like volume-wise, dynamic range, and frequency-wise. Long answer. Sorry.
That is so cool.
I get in, I can't get out.
That was amazing.
All right. Well, that was our last question. Thank you again, you guys, for being here. Like I mentioned, this is a 6-part series, so we have many more sessions to come each Thursday through September 17th. And we'll be talking about marketing your music, A&R, management, mastering, mixing, all of that awesome stuff. And we will be picking the winner for this week's session on Tuesday. So make sure to enter in the contest, as well as come back next week and get more where this came from. If you want to remind yourself so you don't forget, go to our event pages on the Adam Audio Facebook page, and you can select going, and so you won't forget that it's on your calendar. But thank you, ladies. Hope you have a good rest of your morning and night in London.
Thank you. This is so
Thanks
much
for having
fun.
us.
So
Yeah,
fun.
it's been real fun. I might go to Facebook and try to reply to a few questions
Yeah,
while
definitely.
I'm having the vibe of going in. So I might pop up.
Cool. Well, everyone keep asking questions if you want to. But thank you so much. Have a good one. And we will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.